Communication is one of the things that defines us as humans. We're social creatures that have the desire to want to talk to each other, but not just each other. It's been a long time dream of ours to want to one day be able to talk to animals. In this video, we're going to explore a NASA-funded research program that took place in the 1960s with the goal of teaching a dolphin how to mimic human speech. Get ready as we go back in time when there was a revolution in music, politics, society, a time when sexual permissiveness was at an all-time high and people were exploring mind-altering drugs. Brace yourself, things are about to get real weird. Our story begins with a man named John Lilly, a neuroscientist who was pretty well respected in his field. John Lilly started doing experiments mapping the brains of dolphins.
So they've been here 25 million years. We haven't been here that long. We've only been here with our present brain size about 0.2 of a million years.
You gotta remember that this is during a time when scientists believed that there was a strong correlation when it came to the size of a brain and what the brain could actually do. And dolphins, naturally having very large brains, made them really interesting candidates for study. Lilly began doing his experiments and recording his findings. And during this process, he noticed that the dolphins started making unusual noises through their blowholes, and he became convinced that they were trying to mimic the words that he was saying. Lilly published all of his theories and findings in a 1961 book titled Man and Dolphin.
What was your prediction in your book that caused such comment?
I predicted that within a decade or two that the human species would establish communication with another species.
It was a really exciting idea that captured the public's imagination to think that there was another creature that had been living on this planet much longer than we have, that has been trying to communicate with us this whole time, was just incredible. There's one group in particular that found all of these theories of great interest. During this time in the 1960s, we were amidst the space race. NASA wanted to know everything that they could about the challenges that they were going to possibly face in communicating with another intelligent species, in the rare case that they might bump into extraterrestrials. This interest allowed Lilly to find financial backing from the US government, from NASA and other government agencies such as the US Navy. With this newfound money, Lilly opened up a new lab in the Caribbean in 1963 with the sole purpose of strengthening the relationship between dolphins and man and helping them to communicate. But Lilly would need a team to help him accomplish this. In comes Margaret Lovett. Margaret was in her early 20s and living on the island of St. Thomas in the Caribbean. In 1963, her brother-in-law told her about these rumors that on the east end of the island, there was these weird experiments in this secret laboratory that were going on with dolphins. Being the super curious person that she is, she decided that she wanted to go and investigate. Impressed with her, they invited her in to come and meet the dolphins. They gave her a pad of paper and a pen and asked her just to write down everything that she saw. Margaret didn't have a scientific background, but it turned out that she had a really good eye at observing animal behavior. Even though they couldn't offer to pay her, they told her that you can come back whenever you want. Margaret was super thrilled with this and told her to expect her. There, Margaret worked with 3 dolphins, 2 females by the names of Sissy and Pamela, and 1 younger male bottlenose dolphin by the name of Peter. The work was going well at first, and they were starting to see some progress in getting dolphins to mimic certain sounds, but eventually it just kind of stalled out. And that's when Margaret had this idea, and the idea came to her because every single night the researchers would just leave the research lab, and she thought to herself, it just doesn't really feel right that all night these dolphins are there and there could be stuff going on, but nobody's there to see it. And so that's when she decided to pitch this crazy idea that she lives full time with these dolphins, day and night, to be able to capture everything that's going on.
Margaret drew up radical plans for the house. She began completely redesigning the layout of the upstairs rooms.
The building had not been built to flood. And we're going to flood the place comfortably, knee deep, a little bit deeper. And I didn't want to just be indoors for so long. So the balcony as well.
For this full-time live-in experiment, Margaret decided that she was going to focus on one dolphin in particular, the younger male dolphin, Peter.
I had a desk hanging from the ceiling, a telephone. And Peter would sleep next to me, and he would sleep as long as I did.
She was going to spend all of her time with him, and she was going to be able to nurture him and raise him and teach him, much like a mother teaches a child. After a few months of this, Peter did start to see more progress.
A-E-I-O.
Being the young male dolphin that Peter was, Margaret was having a really hard time getting him to focus and pay attention while she was trying to educate him. Peter would often just obsess and focus on her hands and her feet, and he wouldn't want to cooperate with her. But that was the least of it.
They have sexual urges.
Peter liked to be with me.
Peter had caused Margaret some minor injuries on her legs and stuff of pushing like an obsessed suitor.
In the beginning, when he would get rambunctious and have this need, I would put him on the elevator and say, you go play with the girls for a day.
But as Peter's urges grew more frequent, the process of transporting him down to the two female dolphins to satisfy him proved disruptive. And Margaret felt the best way of focusing his mind back on the lessons was to relieve his desires herself manually.
It was just easier to incorporate that and let it happen. Again, it was sexual on his part, it was not sexual on mine. Sensuous, perhaps. I was there to get to know Peter. That was part of Peter.
As if that wasn't enough, something else began to interrupt the studies. Mind you, this is the mid-1960s, and Lily became obsessed with researching the powers of the mind-altering drug LSD. A small selection of neuroscientists like John Lilly were licensed to be able to perform research with LSD by the American government. And John Lilly was convinced that the drug had medicinal qualities and had the ability to explore and unlock people's consciousness. Since nothing else was working, Lilly decided, if we could just inject these dolphins with LSD, maybe then they would start talking. That's what he started doing. This dude literally started injecting dolphins with LSD. Much to Lily's annoyance, though, as you'd probably expect, nothing happened. Due to no scientific research papers actually being published, the drugs and the jerking off, you could imagine that the whole research project became very controversial. In the mid-1970s, Hustler magazine actually ran a piece about this whole story, and after that, nobody wanted to touch them. And shortly after that, the funding dried out and NASA ended up dropping them. Without any more funding, the fate of the dolphins was in question. The lab was decommissioned and the dolphins were sent to Lily's second lab in Miami. There the dolphins were held in captivity in much smaller tanks. They didn't receive much sunlight or human interaction. Peter's health quickly deteriorated and he became super depressed. A few weeks later, Margaret received this news.
I got that phone call from John Lilly. John called me himself to tell me, and he said he committed suicide.
This is something that I didn't know. Dolphins are not automatic air breathers like we are. Every single breath they take is a conscious effort, and when life becomes too unbearable, they'll just take in one last deep breath and sink to the bottom. Peter's death was probably due to a broken heart, brought on by the separation of Margaret that he didn't understand. He probably couldn't rationalize why the love of his life would have left him. In the decades that followed, John Lilly continued his study of human-dolphin communication, and he continued to try and talk to them in new and interesting ways, and in some ways that were pretty mystical. Like, he tried to talk to them through telepathy and through musical notes. In the end, he got really wrapped up in the drugs, and he ended up becoming sort of like this spiritual guru. He got on live TV and he felt all this remorse and sadness for all these dolphin animal studies that he did, that he apologized to the public, and he ended up freeing all of the dolphins into the wild, which was a good thing. To this day, though, nobody has picked back up his studies and has tried to teach a dolphin to speak, and probably for good reason. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, let me know in the comments below and maybe share it with a friend. I don't know, think about it. Also, for more content like this, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.